It's just about 7:30. We'll get started here. Wanted to thank everybody for joining us this evening, and I hope everybody is doing well and healthy and safe, and hopefully at least enjoying time with family. Just to get us started here, so for those of you that do not know me, my name is Matt Rizzuto, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Centercourt Club and Sports. We're all really excited here to discuss this new program with you called Centercourt 360. Just to repeat what Rob said earlier, for anybody that may have questions throughout the webinar, please just type them into the chat room, and we'll address as many as we possibly can at the end of the discussion. We'll leave, maybe 10 to 15 minutes at the end for those to try and answer any questions you may have. So just kind of give you some backstory here. So going back, the original plan for Centercourt 360 was to provide a few various high school support programs over the summer, ramping up to an after-school program beginning in September. But given everything that's happened over the last several weeks, we knew that we need to accelerate our timeline and begin offering these valuable programs now to the students in need during this time of uncertainty. All of the offerings we'll talk about in today's discussion will be hosted remotely through Zoom, whether they be meetings or webinars. And kind of the difference between meetings and webinars, if you're not familiar with Zoom, is meetings are more collaborative, lower amount of participants can join, but you can all speak freely. Whereas a webinar, what we're doing today, is more for a given amount of panelists to speak about a topic and for those attendees to listen and ask questions. Everything is recorded. Everything will be recorded each time, whether it be a tutoring session, a small group session, a large group webinar will all be recorded for you. So we'll always send those out to you in case you missed it or you want to reference back to it. So Centercourt 360, it's a program designed to really spread community and provide academic and social support that cater to the whole child, not just on the playing surface, but emotionally and in the classroom as well. We've worked very hard over the last several months to put together just a tremendous group of tutors and speakers, mentors, leaders, all with a common goal. We're really aiming to promote leadership, mindfulness, healthy lifestyle choices, camaraderie, and confidence, along with exposure to career, education, technology, and wellness curriculums that are enhanced with our kind of extensive outside professional series, which we'll talk more about. We've assembled a tremendous staff and tutors that understand the competitive academic and athletic environments, career educators that can guide their students by drilling skills, cementing current content knowledge, and emphasizing study techniques. Following are just a few key personnel that I'd like to call your attention to, many of whom are panelists here today. First is Rob Flynn. Rob is he's waving to you. Rob is a technology integration specialist at Delbarton School. He's got 13 years experience teaching English and coaching football and lacrosse. Rob is honestly, he's been an integral piece of this program launch, and the experience he brings is invaluable to our team. A tremendous example of Rob's talents are just recently he pioneered the effort to convert Delbarton School to functioning fully remote within 72 hours, which it took an incredible amount of focus and commitment, and I think that people wondered if he even slept during that period. Next is Tony Negrin. So Tony teaches English and coaches varsity baseball at Delbarton School. He's also he's the director of our baseball program at Centercourt as well, and the co-founder of the New Jersey Rising Rebels club baseball team. One of Tony's greatest strengths is developing students and players' physical, intellectual, and competitive abilities in the classroom and on the field. Just one more quick shout out for Tony. Last year, he and his baseball staff at Delbarton coached a state championship team that included the 2019 first-round draft pick of the New York Yankees, as well as several other college recruits, including Jack Leiter, who is now pitching at Vanderbilt and is the son of former major leaguer Al Leiter. So kudos to Tony and his group. Next, I'd like to introduce Kim Christos. Many of you already know Kim. She's currently the director of girls lacrosse at Centercourt. Prior to Centercourt, Kim spent 16 years as a collegiate coach at Drew University, the College of William & Mary, Brown University, and Boston College. And as many of you know, if you know Kim at all, you know that she's a tremendous mentor for all ages and levels of students, athletes, and coaches. To have her support in this program is incredible for everyone involved. Next, we have Stephen Bienko. Stephen is the co-founder of 42 Growth Strategies, which is a social media marketing agency specializing in sports, fitness, and wellness. Stephen spent about the last 10 years in marketing and sports management, and he's really is a dynamic mentor and motivational speaker to all ages and levels of students and athletes. Prior to his professional career, Stephen graduated from Delbarton School and attended the Air Force Academy, where he was a member of the football team. Stephen ended up graduating from Villanova, where he competed as a decathlete and held the school record for in the discus, which is pretty impressive. Finally, we have Dr. Nick Molinaro. Dr. Nick is a licensed psychologist with specialties in counseling, human development, and sports performance psychology. Additionally, Dr. Nick is a corporate consultant in talent acquisition and retention, executive performance and development, and corporate culture enhancement. He currently works in the area of performance psychology with middle school children through the professional and Olympic level athletes in all sports. Just a couple examples of groups and individuals that Dr. Nick works with are the NBA, the NFL, PGA and LPGA tours, Rutgers University men's golf team, Johns Hopkins men's lacrosse team, and Yale men's lacrosse team. Dr. Nick is also a frequent speaker and guest on the Golf Channel, Sirius XM PGA Tour, and NBA Radio, CBS Sports, Fox 5 Sports, and ESPN Sports Radio. So stop blushing, Nick. You're a good guy. In addition to these individuals I've just discussed, we put together a tremendously talented and experienced group of tutors covering all disciplines from top institutions such as Delbarton, Tufts, Cornell, Fairleigh Dickinson, and many more, and we're adding more and more as we go. I'm now going to turn it over to Rob Flynn, who's going to provide some additional firsthand knowledge and experience as to why this type of program is so important. And Rob will also be running our panel through a brief kind of Q&A session, so you can hear directly from everyone this evening as they all play a major role in what we're doing moving forward. So Rob, take it from here.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Matt. So I just want to, I've been thinking about today and what's been going on, and at our school and in a lot of schools, and just kind of wanted to frame our time together around kind of some short-term ideas and obviously some long-term opportunities. So obviously, I think a lot of people have talked about, like, there's a lot of unknown right now, a lot of unknown. And I think really short-term wise, this is a huge opportunity. And I think framing this and I sort of see this as a huge opportunity for a lot of students. And the reason why I feel like that is because where education is right now is almost at a standstill. And I think at our schools, at my school, we're trying extremely hard to make this as meaningful of an experience as we can. And I think we're doing an amazing job with that. I know educators across the state, but there are very real limitations to what is happening right now in terms of just school and what can be delivered through the computer. And I'm a technology person, and I know firsthand how that is. So, and we also know that kids really, I think right now, need something constructive. We have time, we have maybe an opportunity to really think about building some skills or ironing out some weaknesses, because ultimately, like, we know this whole crazy train of college admissions and all those things, like, it's going to start back up, and are kids going to be from Algebra 1 be ready for Algebra 2 and Spanish 2 into Spanish 3, or to go into AP Calc, or to be ready for the college essay, or have your English skills and your writing skills and your speaking skills still been developed during this time at home? And I think the reality is that there's going to be some haves and there's going to be some have-nots. And I think there are going to be some kids that have really made good use of this time and looked at it as an opportunity to get better. And there's some people that have not. So I think in the short term, that's how I look at, and that's why I'm excited about and believe in what we're doing, because I think kids like to work. I think, they having something to latch onto, to improve on, is a really big benefit. And then long-term, thinking about why would I want to be involved in this program long-term? I think there are elements of Centercourt 360 beyond just a normal tutoring program that are really integral to a child's development. So because what I'm seeing right now as an educator in working in schools is that, even under the best circumstances, we're really struggling with stress management, and we're really struggling with mental health outcomes. I think if you read any of the literature, you see that mental health outcomes for kids have really kind of gone on a precipitous decline in the last really 12 years. And that's something that, how do we benefit that, or how do we improve that? I think it's definitely with the student athlete experience, as I'm sure many of you guys are familiar with, but it's also with, I think, some of this other social emotional learning, with developing public speaking, with developing confidence in the community, and kind of all the things that we're really trying to lean into here. So I think, with that, I'm excited and really see the service and the value of what we're trying to provide, not just as an academic program, but as kind of a whole child program, and that idea of 360. So I'm very excited to be a part of this and to work with Matt and the rest of Centercourt. So I'm going to kind of kick it around to the panelists a little bit. So the first person I just want to kind of bring into the conversation is Tony. And Tony, I know you've been, just working with student athletes, all throughout your career, right, at Delbarton. It's and not just like the great student athletes like Jack Leiter, but every kid that comes in the 9th grade and doesn't know who they are, and walks into your English class and gets a sense of purpose.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. And it's been quite a journey for me these last 7 years since graduating college. I've been very fortunate to have, been given the opportunity by Delbarton School to be not only an educator, but also a coach, and a coach at the varsity level of an esteemed program, and one that was rich in tradition. As a freshman English teacher and an assistant coach for the varsity team, I've been able to be engaged with tremendous and exceptional students, like, as Matt mentioned, Anthony Volpe last year and Jack Leiter. But as Rob mentioned, also, these freshmen come in and they're looking for their ability to become leaders and their ability to become very valued in the educational aspect of their lives. So they come in, and the part of that I love about Delbarton is we expect them and train them to become those leaders, not only in the classroom, but in the real world. I've noticed over the last 7 years that all of these young men that I've been fortunate enough to teach and coach have similar characteristics, which have made them very successful during their 4-year high school stint, whatever college experience they had, even graduate school or doctoral school work, as well as in the workforce. And it's hard to believe some of those guys are already have full-time jobs that I taught, way back when. And these characteristics, I believe, are ones that this program will constantly reinforce. And those are confidence, discipline, passion, the ability to remain organized in all facets of life, as well as that ability to effectively communicate, not only interpersonally, but virtually, now we have to, and in their writing ability. But what's been most impressive, as I mentioned before, is how these young men have used these attributes to become the good people that they are in the world today.
So, looking at what we're thinking about with 360 Tone, I mean, can you just speak a little bit to how, like the athletes that you work with every day, and not just obviously at Delbarton School, but really throughout Morris County, like how this could address some of the needs that you're seeing a little bit?
Yeah, of course, Rob. With the ways in which athletes are forced to learn at the current moment and be trapped inside their houses and looking for any way to better themselves, whether it's academically or athletically or even socially, to that matter, the 360 program allows for the personal touch, which is what, the athletes I've talked to are yearning for. It's so crucial, as we all know, to athletes in general, but especially during this time, they are desiring that personal touch. Many of my athletes, whether they are Delbarton varsity players who are hoping for their season to happen, or high school players in the Centercourt Club baseball program, they've really expressed a consistency in two things. Reassurance is the first one. They need reassurance from an adult that everything's going to be okay. with talks of canceling seasons, rumors of college programs not recruiting anymore, and just the inability to be social and compete with their teammates on the playing field. These athletes need a guiding light. And I believe that the educators and the coaches in this program can serve as one of them. And then the second part is structure. We all need structure in our lives, but specifically athletes who have stayed on a path of a very rigid and tough schedule, they need structure. Athletes are unable to stick to the schedule that has made them successful, both in the classroom and as an athlete, due to everything going on in our world today. And with schools in flux about how they are remote teaching students and varied instruction, again, the 360 program offers a very concrete and consistent weekly time or times that an athlete can depend on and, quite frankly, needs at this time. And again, this program provides an outlet for students to engage with professionals, as well as reinforces the structure, as I mentioned before, and the organization that athletes need. It opens up a form of communication, one that will allow the athletes not only to become better versed as people, but better versed in writing. And I'm a little selfish when I talk about writing, but as an English teacher, I love this one because this is the way of the world now, especially with college recruiting for these athletes. You'd be surprised the number of times coaches contact me about how well versed an email was, or how well versed their conversation with a student athlete was. It's very important now. I think that this program creates a platform for students to also speak up, to voice their concerns and communicate on a regular basis about the concepts or lessons learned that are needed to help with their journey in life. And I just think that this program will be a light for many of the student athletes who are looking for stability right now in their lives. So I hope that helps, Rob.
No, I mean, I feel like I need structure in my life right now too. So, and it's exciting. Like, I think this is a great, like, for myself too, like, it's a great time to take on projects and to think about, taking the next step just as a person. So I wanted to kick it over to Kim. Kim, you have 16 years of collegiate coaching. Can you just, a big part of, I think, what we're trying to do is the mental toughness and the mental direction which really Dr. Nick is going to speak to. But can you just talk about, like, in your college coaching experience, working with really high level athletes, how, that goal setting and the emotional resilience and kind of all that mental training, how important that is when it plays out on the college field at the high level there?
Sure. Hi, everybody, and thanks, Rob. Tony, you made some great points, especially on the recruiting side of things. As a college coach, I looked forward to the first meeting with my team to start off the new school year. The room was always filled with excitement and optimism of the numerous possibilities of the year ahead. This is when I would stress to my athletes the importance of setting team goals, both long and short term, as well as their own personal individual goals. Their long-term goals usually included like winning the conference or getting a bid to the NCAA tournament, etc. But it was their short-term goals that interested me the most. The short-term goals gave us the day-to-day motivation, the how, what, and why. How are we going to prepare? What do we need to do? And why will we work hard and make sacrifices as members of this team? These goals established by the players were extremely important as they set the tone for the season. At the conclusion of the meeting, I gently reminded my players that we all are on this journey, and as long as we stuck together by supporting and motivating one another, we can face any challenges and obstacles that get in our way. It is inevitable, though, that every team faces adversity along their journey. Players get injured, the team starts to lose games, etc. This is when emotional resilience comes into play. The definition of resilience is the ability to bounce back in the face of challenge and adversity. How we respond to adversity helps us define our character and is essential for personal growth and development. The more resilient athletes do not allow adversity to negatively affect them. Instead, they use the resources around them and the support of others to gain strength, perseverance, and sometimes even providing them with greater motivation to achieve their goals. Being able to stay focused, adjust your goals when needed, and maintain a positive attitude when faced with adversity are the key factors needed to succeed as a collegiate athlete. What Centercourt 360 provides is immense resources for student athletes to help them establish their long and short-term goals. But more importantly, we provide them the support they need when faced with their own challenges and adversity. Our universal goal at Centercourt is to develop the whole child by providing them the emotional, academic, and athletic assistance they need to achieve success in all aspects of life. And you know, this is something, Rob, that we've established on the girls lacrosse side, and I'm just really excited that it's not only athletes that we're working with now, but just students and the non-athletes as well, because physical activity, as we know, is very important to mental health, which I'm sure we'll touch on later as well. So I'm super excited to be a part of this team. I think it's great for the kids out there, and I look forward to working with you.
Yeah, awesome. So I want to pivot kind of to some of the more academic components of, you know, Matt mentioned a couple different services that 360 is going to be a part of. So the free webinars are going to be one of them. More kind of in-depth classes with maybe around a 10 to 15 student to teacher ratio will be another, and then the tutoring, remote tutoring, either in one-to-one or in small groups is going to be another. So I wanted to introduce Alma Lopez-Holder, who's an outstanding teacher at our school, and I've been in Alma's class and just really blown away by the level of organization that she can get out of her kids through her coaching, and she has a coaching background, she has a teaching background, and you know, just Alma, I've just seen you and what happens when you can work on that organization with young people. How does that, like, I mean, how do you, I was very disorganized as a student myself. Like, how do you do that? It's a hard thing to do.
Thank you, Rob. Yes, good evening, everybody. My name is Alma Lopez-Holder, as Rob mentioned. I've been teaching for 7 years now. I am a Spanish teacher and the assistant swim coach at Del Barton. And as Rob mentioned, organization for every student is at different levels. It's something that I work on every single day. And it's something that I work on from the beginning of the year. This is not something that we can implement 2 weeks before the school ends, trying to get everything together and how am I going to study for finals, for example. So I take the first week of school and just organize their binders, their notebooks with them. And I tried, many of them say why, because again, most of the students I teach are freshmen and middle school students who are like, why do I need to be organized? But then when I explain to them, it makes a huge difference with their time management, because many of my students are athletes. So when they are organized, it helps them balance their time better. And in the beginning, it's a battle going back and forth. I'm not gonna lie to you, Rob, but when you came in and observed my class, it's practice. Like anything, any sport, anything we do in life, it's one thing to do it once, but it's one thing to really keep up with it. And I am hardcore with my students on this is where this goes. My binders are all organized by sections, so that they later realize that not only are they building the skill of being organized and time management, but also the students who have trouble studying. They can go back to their binders and say, oh, Senora told me I can study this grammar from my grammar section of my binder. So it's gotten to the point where parents and students throughout my teaching years have come to me and said, you should probably teach a lesson on how to teach kids to be organized. And parents are so thankful all the time. And the kids are too. I've had kids come back and say, you've taught me something that I thought I would never be good at. And it's something so simple, but for some kids, very, very hard. And also I feel like life-changing, because again, this is something that I'm sure we all do. We all have a checklist. And which leads me to my next point, with the virtual learning that our schools are now doing with this pandemic that we're living in. My students were very accustomed to the organization that I provide for them. So they had no trouble finding their virtual folder and all of their assignments. I provided them a checklist, a weekly checklist of, hey, print this checklist out, put it in front of you in your work section, wherever you're going to be working, and cross it off as you finish an assignment or a test or a quiz, whatever it is. And not only for them, but I also do it for the parents, because, parents are just as lost in this virtual learning that the schools are doing. And I think that when the parents are able to see, hey, this is what you need to do for Spanish, or this is what you need to do for this class, and just cross it out, it's a sense of relief, not only for the student, but for the parent as well, because they have minimal communication. So I went this whole week, last week, I provided them a checklist. We went over it together. I also helped them organize a schedule, a home schedule that would give them some sort of structure. Tony spoke about structure, and I think these kids need that. So it provides them, since their life is changing, they don't have a structured daily schedule. It kind of mimics what they would be doing if they were in school. And I think I received an email 2 days ago from a kid who said, thank you for doing this. It makes me on top of my stuff and I appreciate it. So I'm looking forward to providing this kind of skill to the people who are listening here tonight. I'm excited. This is what I'm passionate about. So thank you, Rob.
That's great. And Alma is I think indicative of not just like we're not providing tutors for people. We're providing people who are career educators, and there are people from places like Cornell and Del Barton and Fairleigh Dickinson, and we have some people at Tufts Medical School right now. I mean, so I feel very strongly about the group of people that are around. And I would just say, to add on to Alma's point, that I'm about a week away from a degree in special education. Oh, there we go. Cool. I'm highlighted. Thank you. And kids don't, for the most part, what I see, and I work with at-risk kids, like they don't have problems in science. They have problems organizing their life. And so I think, a lot of kids in kind of the average world need people like Alma, and need teachers that are going to really sit down with them and help them just with their executive functioning skills. That's the biggest problem I see with, the C kid going to a B kid, or the B kid going to an A kid. So and just kind of talking about the community part of it, I wanted to kick it over to Stephen. Stephen, you've been in this world, you're in really your whole career with online learning and thinking about social media and athletics, right? Can you just give people a background on that? It's awesome.
Yeah, well, thanks, Rob, for bringing social media into this discussion today with education and performance. I've been lucky enough to be involved with social media, social engagement since 2004. I saw it early on as a great way to communicate, educate, and engage with people. And I've seen the effects it's had on our ability to communicate in a multitude of ways during these years. But the general first thought about social media is normally where it's rooted in its original design. And we kind of have this perception that it's all fun, enjoyment, and entertainment. But I like to consider adding a twist to the name and establishing it as social learning, because social media truly supports educational platforms in a variety of ways. So I think today we can start talking differently about how social media can impact our youth in educational ways, and understanding how to learn differently.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody, especially now, understands the social aspects, and along with the technology, and how important that is, and I mean, what we're doing right now. But can you just explain a little bit how these social networks can support young people in their learning, and I mean, especially now, but really, for a long time and a long time in the future.
Fortunately and unfortunately, our children learn more today from social networks than they do from traditional learning modules. I think that sometimes it's tough for us to swallow and admit to it, but
especially teachers, right?
Especially teachers, it's hard, but they truly do. And I have a couple of facts I'd love to share in a moment or two around that. But this is a tremendous opportunity to meet students where they are, right? And because let's face it, they've developed new styles of learning. They've developed new learning skills. And the best educators, coaches, mentors, they meet their students where they are, right? They adapt to their needs. They learn what's most effective. And being effective as a coach or a teacher requires you to pivot again, and pivot again. So when we navigate this properly with a pinpointed purpose, social media can be a tremendous place to engage and learn. And I think, now we all know that our best learning experiences have come at the hands of an engaging teacher, a coach, or a mentor that truly embraces us as an individual or as a group, but truly begins to understand and, like I mentioned before, meets us exactly where we are. And today's young student athlete needs to be met where they are, and we need to start figuring out new and entrepreneurial ways of communicating and educating with them. Some of the new platforms, like the one we're on right now, currently present tremendous opportunities to reach a diverse student population within the learning environments that they can thrive in. We can meet them where they are most comfortable. And I think we tend to bring our glasses down to young children today about how they may be learning versus how we learn. And, from what I can see on this call and from what we've seen over the past week in a multitude of sports and organizations engaging in social learning, they're doing it, and we're doing it successfully. And people are learning, educating, and having fun at the same time.
Absolutely.
So we've seen these organizations engaging in social learning. So we have an amazing opportunity to bring another dynamic to the performance of young student athletes. But before I bring it back over to you, Rob, I want to hit some quick facts that are surrounding YouTube, which I think has the most significant comparison to what we call social-based learning. So 90% of 18 to 24-year-olds are currently using YouTube. 93% of 25 to 30-year-olds use YouTube. Now, 64% of those with high school education or less use YouTube. 79% of those with some college education use YouTube. And 80% of those with a college education or more use YouTube. Now, another interesting fact here, 68% of those making less than $30,000 use YouTube. 75% of those making 30 to 75 use YouTube, but 83% of those making more than $75K a year use YouTube. There's a link to that into learning and education and performance. So social learning and entertainment is obviously working for people as a valuable resource. So I think in the 360 program at Centercourt, this right now, today, this gives us a great opportunity to meet our young students exactly where they are and learn from them and educate them at the same time.
That's awesome. So, I think, if you're listening here, there are people, on the call and involved that in this program just don't exist in schools, and there's not really a model for them to exist in school. I mean, people like Steven, who is an entrepreneur and can work with, your sons and daughters on public speaking and that mindset of that entrepreneurship, that flexible, growth mindset that's so important. And that's, I think, a huge part of the value add in a program like ours versus just like tutoring. I think there's a lot of people who do tutoring, but us looking at the athletic, the academic, but also this kind of the supplemental, these soft skills that schools talk about that everyone says is so important, and how do we really build them? And I think Stephen is a really good example of just the kind of people that we can expose your sons and daughters to. So another person kind of in that list is Dr. Nick Molinaro. So his resume is a mile long. He's worked with athletes, Nick, at the Olympic level, at the high school level, every college division, and just in sports that require the utmost focus and competitive drive. It's just an amazing career. I don't really sleep very much, but you must not sleep at all.
I don't need a lot of sleep, fortunately. I've been blessed. Well, my background, in addition to that, just to help people understand my experience in education, I was a special ed teacher to begin with and became a school psychologist. Then I became a director of special services in Glen Ridge. And then I left public education to go on to my pursuits in clinical and performance psychology. So I have a background working with kids for many, many years.
And, I said to Matt, when we were talking about Dr. Nick being involved, what a better environment to have somebody with his experience. If you're a student or if you're a parent who's concerned about, you're developing your son or daughter mentally, about any kind of mental health issues. I just think you're such a great value add to our program and just to the young people that are here. So specifically, there's a lot of things I know that you can talk about, but can you just talk specifically about how the mind and how you train athletes and kids to overcome obstacles and that in the process for that, just briefly?
Yes, thank you, Rob. And Matt, thanks for the opportunity to be part of this wonderful staff. Well, first of all, psychology is a science. So I begin working with each student by evaluating 20 mental skills. Most people don't know that you have 20 mental skills in sport and performance. After we do that, we start to identify which of those things might be inborn predispositions, things that are very resistant to change. And so trying to train those students the same way we change students that are much more flexible because of inherent predispositions won't work. So we need to use a very science-oriented model. The test I used was standardized on Olympic athletes. It's currently used with Navy SEALs and used in all the leagues, PGA, MLB, NBA. So it's the same type of information that we get, and we can identify these kinds of cognitive, emotional performances and teach them how to modify them by mental skills training, thinking differently, emotional regulation, attentional shifting. There's a whole bunch of things. It would take a long time to get through them, but suffice it to say that it's a very science-oriented performance base. It's not enough that we're going to try to make kids feel better about themselves. This is all science-based, data-driven, and I look forward to being having the opportunity to work with the kids.
Awesome. And I think, when I was going to high school and thinking about college football and, the idea of just the resources that I think you could provide would have been such a benefit to me. I think so many of the things you talk about really you only learn as an adult, but now it's just so much more competitive, the entire sports arena. So I just think the earlier you can build those skills, obviously, the better. So I'm just going to bring it back to Matt, and he can talk kind of more about the logistics. But I'm really happy to talk to anybody on the call who's interested in learning more about the program. And I'm very passionate about the people we have are involved, both the educators and I think some of the people that can really help build that whole all the things that you need to be successful today as a young person. So
cool.
Matt, you still there?
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Thanks everybody for that information. I know that's a lot of information for everybody, but I think it's important to kind of know where we're all coming from here and why we're doing this. So, and kind of what value we can all add. So, excuse me, just moving forward with some, with regards to some specific offerings. I know some of you have been asking about that and really what is this at the end of the day. And so there's a couple of different things that we're going to be offering. And first is private and small group tutoring sessions. I mentioned before, we have a lot of very talented and really bright tutors that are working with us. And these tutoring sessions are available now. We can schedule them at your convenience. Doesn't have to be a specific day or time, whatever works for your schedule. We have a lot of different tutors across a lot of different disciplines, and we'll work with you to make sure it fits your schedule. So the tutoring sessions can be purchased as a one-off whenever you want, or you can buy packages of 5. You're going to receive more information about how to inquire and sign up for tutoring sessions via email after this webinar. So next are the weekly small group classes and breakout sessions. These are going to, most of these are going to run in a 4-part series. And these are really the collaborative sessions that we talked about earlier, where, it could be anywhere from 5 to 15 or more people with one leader. And you're really diving into certain topics. And it's a great value add for what we're trying to get across here. So for instance, we've got our first week planned out, and next week's sessions are going to include, every week we'll have a weekly fitness and nutrition workout and tips with Tim Clifford, who's actually our director of strength and conditioning at Centercourt. Alma Lopez-Holder is going to be holding a session about how to succeed as virtual learners. We've got another session, developing a mindset of a performance-driven life. That's with Stephen Bienko. Stress management for the whole family with Dr. Nick Molinaro. This is going to be a two-part discussion. And then finally, making social media work for you with Rob Flynn. Now don't take this class lightly. Social media, as Rob and Stephen have alluded to, it's a powerful tool. It can really work towards your child's advantage as students and student athletes, and whether it's building a LinkedIn profile or really leveraging Facebook and Instagram for recruiting, or just building your own personal image. It's very important. Finally, it's our commitment to ensure that we're providing several powerful free webinars each week that speak to large groups on important topics. Some of our upcoming webinars, which will begin the week of April 6th, will discuss open versus closed sports, kind of discussing the emotional regulation in sport performance, and that's going to be led by Dr. Nick Molinaro. Also, we've got a webinar that's going to be recruiting tips and how COVID-19 has impacted recruiting. This particular webinar is going to be panel-based, and it's going to include several different coaches, including Tony Negrin, who's our baseball director and the Del Barton baseball coach. Joe Moore, who's one of our boys lacrosse directors and also is the head coach at Princeton Day School. Kim Christos will be involved. Laura Brand, who works with Kim on our lacrosse staff, was the former Rutgers University women's lacrosse head coach for several years. And then other current and former college coaches are going to be involved as well. We'll name those later. But other topics for future webinars are going to include discussions on leadership skills, nutrition, social media awareness, meditation, personal finance. We also have a career series that will include speakers from various professions, including professional and college sports, law, medical, private banking, media, etc. So once again, at the conclusion of this webinar, you'll receive a follow-up email listing our next week's offerings, as well as registration links to sign up. Similarly, each week moving forward, an email will be sent out midweek containing the schedule for the upcoming week. So you always know in advance what classes are being offered, what webinars are being offered, what the topics are, who's the speakers, so you can plan accordingly. For any general questions or inquiries, we have a 360@centercourtclub.com email address that you can send any questions to, and the appropriate staff member will get back to you right away. Thank you again. This concludes the meeting for this evening, and we're going to stay on the line for another few minutes. If anybody has any questions, you can throw those in the chat room or use the Q&A area.
There is one question about just, well, is this going to be open to outside clubs or just Centercourt?
This is for everybody. This is for all student athletes, all athletes that are, all non-athletes. No, we're here to help the community at large. This is not a Centercourt-based program. This is a community-based program.
And the email will go to parents and students?
Correct.
Yeah. And Tony asked that we mentioned too that we have tutors in place across all disciplines, including SAT, ACT, college essay. So we really have. I'm very excited about just the breadth of expertise that we have with that. So that's worth maybe repeating. But if you have any other questions too, feel free to drop them in.
Anybody else? An email after this with the webinar attached to it, and
at the cost will be in those, like, that will be really broken down in that email, right?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Great.
All right, everybody.
Thank you. So thank you everybody for being here. I know there's not a whole lot to do, but
All right. Have a good evening, everybody. And thank you again for joining us. Take care.